I am Nathan Malone.
Well, great to have you, Nathan. I'm so glad to just have this opportunity just to sit down and talk with you and just to hear your story. Just start off with this. What was your life like before you became a Christian? I mean, what was your, upbringing like, or where were you spiritually?
So, upbringing was raised in a Catholic church. I was in church my entire childhood. I actually went to Catholic elementary school. Um, Went through first communion, reconciliation, and then confirmation in high school with the Catholic Church. Um, Went through all learned everything in their classes, and at the time, probably would have been definitely would have claimed, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. But a lot of it was superficial as far as I was young, and also um, a lot of it was about things that I did or like following certain rituals. Um, and then as I came into high school, we had youth group, and that was probably the most faithful part of it. I can tell you, just I don't remember a lot of sermons or homilies, if you will, from church, but I do have some good memories of youth group. But then I went to college, and I didn't have a good group of people around me. And then it just so happened that the group of people around me was frat boys, and so that's what we did. And I sort of fell into that. So I had that foundational knowledge, I guess, but it wasn't real. I didn't have that connection. Um, I would say during that period of time when I was living the party lifestyle, I genuinely knew like what I was doing wasn't very good. Um, and I knew that God still exists, and sometimes I would think like, well, as long as I get up and go to church in the morning, it's fine. Um, there were certainly a few times where it was rough getting there. I I would say in general I would profess to be Christian, but a lot of my actions didn't match that.
Kind of sounds like you're kind of going through the motions a lot.
Yeah.
Is that true? Or
Oh yeah.
yeah,
And honestly, a lot of it was sort of for show. Like I was very much, even in high school, I was thinking about this. It was like, all right, this is what you wear to church, or these are things you say, or oh, we do fasting for Ash Wednesday or whatever. And it was like, gotta let everyone know that I'm doing this, so everyone can see that I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do. So that it was definitely, you know, on the outside going through those motions, trying to make everyone see that, yeah,
would
I'm
you
doing
say
it.
that that's probably the trap? Is sometimes that you know, kind of that mindset kind of becomes ritualistic, or just kind of like going through the motions, as I mentioned before, but just kind of routine, I guess.
I think it is definitely routine, and that's where even if you get yourself busy doing church related functions, if it's all just a routine, um, where's the heart? Then that's still something today that in our men's group we talk about is, where's the heart versus are you doing this because it's checking a box?
Yeah.
So
So you mentioned the fact that it seemed like there was some thoughts you had in college, like you knew that wasn't the right track for you. But what was some of the things that led up to the part where you started? I need to go deeper with my faith.
Well, in particular, there was a night where I had more than enough, and I actually rolled out of bed, or some might say God pushed me out of bed. I was in a loft about 6 feet in the air, fell down, knocked a tooth out.
Oh wow.
Went to the hospital. They my roommate was fantastic and put it in milk, saved it. Um, the hospital put it back in.
Really?
It lasted for 10 years or so.
Huh. That's
I
wild.
had to get a fake tooth here a few years ago for that, but so there's still some pictures floating around of me missing a tooth, but um, yeah, I had to do that, and the night after that happened, I still remember vividly. I was really upset by all this. You know, I called my parents, obviously, and just was distraught. But the night after it all happened, I still remember God just at night in my dream just telling me it was going to be okay. Um, and I sort of filed that away, like, all right. And then I was trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do coming away from this, and I was recovering. I was actually in the marching band at the time, and one of my fellow trombone players in the band, um, invited me to a Bible study. And that was the band was like a fraternity in itself, and there was a lot of that atmosphere there too. And I just wasn't really aware that there's this other group who does Bible study. That the other party lifestyle was much more prevalent. Um, and so that's when I went to that. That was fall of my junior year, I
Okay.
believe. So
Was that affiliated with a church, or was that like
that was the Navigators,
okay?
Navs.
Oh yeah.
So started going to that. We had a Tuesday night Bible study with just guys, and there was once a month there was one with the girls too, but Tuesday night was just the guys, and then just meeting with them and really studying the Bible. That was not part of my upbringing. Um, Definitely not a lot of time reading the Word. We went to church, we listened, um, and that was pretty much it. Um, we had a Bible, but it wasn't a routine for us to do. Um, and so that was the first time I actually got in, like, studied Scripture. That led to some conversations with my dad, which surprised me, because he did know his Scripture, but somewhere along the way, that hadn't transferred to me. Um, so that was an interesting time. Actually, we talked the first time we had sort of a debate about Scripture was about faith and works, and Ephesians and versus James, talking about works and just that whole dynamic. Just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Um, and I was really fortunate with the guys who I was with. They were very accepting. I still felt most comfortable at the time going to a Catholic church, just because that's where grew up, and so I went to the Catholic mass on campus, and a couple of the guys who they weren't Catholic just went with me to support me.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was awesome. I had tried going to their church service and just didn't have a very good experience. I don't know, didn't work. But their willingness to step outside their comfort zone for me, that meant a lot. So,
Yeah.
and I still think about a couple of those guys and what they did for me in that time. So then immediately after that, I was a co-op. So in layman's terms, I took a semester off from school working at a plant, and during that time, I met another engineer who was also Christian, and we did Bible study together.
Oh, that's cool.
After work, we read through I don't even remember what book we read through. We read a chapter a week and we got together and talked about it. And we had some tremendous growth. I still remember talking with him about who his future wife, now wife, would be. That was just a really cool experience. Um, that isn't to say that just because that time period of time I just flipped the switch, it was still a process, getting to where I am now. But that was definitely the turning moment.
Yeah.
So,
So what was that? Well, let's talk about this for a second too. Is like what part of Virginia did you live in at the time? Before?
just south of Richmond,
Okay, and then so of course you went to Virginia Tech for
about 3 hours
college.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of neat how God brought these people in your life that really kind of were where you needed them at the
Mm-hmm.
time. And God, whether it was in band or whether it was at this co-op for work,
Yeah.
it's really neat how God put those people in your path to kind of help you. So what was the crux, or what was the things that led up to you? Okay, I want to take my faith from just being a kind of going through the motions type of thing to where you kind of made that decision. I want to be a follower of Jesus and to really do more of the heart thing that you talked about.
Um, I mean, so during that period of it was just nice to have some friends who were like-minded. I think at that time that was what I was most looking for in college, and I found other people who were. I didn't have to live that lifestyle to have that to align a little bit better with what my views were. But as far as really being on fire and passionate about Christ, that happened a little bit later, like
Okay.
after. So my wife and I, well we got married in 2014, and we were looking for a church, and we found a church, and we found a small group.
Well, let's back up for a
Yeah.
second. How did you meet Allie? Yeah.
Yeah, online
Oh,
actually.
okay.
And she actually ended up moving down there.
So is she from Virginia too?
No,
Or?
she's from Cleveland.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Well, at the time she was in Cleveland. She's from here. At the time she was in Cleveland.
Okay.
Yeah. So we met online. It just so happened that she lost her job at that time, and
Oh, well.
she took a leap of faith there and moved down there. And I was already looking for a house. Not one of my more Christian moments here. We were engaged, and I said, "Well, I have a house, and you don't have a place to live." So that happened. So she moved in. Um, and I had some family who were like not too thrilled with that, and talked to us about it. So we got married. I would have been married the next day. I didn't care. But she had planned the wedding, and she wanted everything done a certain way.
Yeah.
And we had to wait. But
You were ready to go. She was like, I want a special wedding.
yeah. So,
Which is understandable.
yeah. Yep. So actually, we went to the courthouse and got married by, well, he was a judge officially, but he was also a pastor. And so we got married in 2014, had the big party celebration on her parents' farm, in 2015. So that we had 200 plus people at it, and so her mom owns a fairly well known bakery around here,
Yeah.
and so she had a lot of connections, and it was a good time.
Good.
But so at the time, we both sort of knew that we wanted to be in church. Didn't know really what that looked like. So obviously I'd grown up Catholic. She had grown up kind of a mix. She has another word for it, but Methodist and something else. Anyways, I think Presbyterian. And we were just looking for somewhere to go. We found a church with a young adults small group.
Good.
And that group is really what sparked the drive. Just the people within that group. We found a couple who was a little bit older than us, about 10 years older, and they sort of mentored us through being a young married couple. And that's really where we started making headway. And really driving.
I like how you mentioned that your journey was just that. It was a journey towards Christ.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you always knew him being God creator, knew a lot of things through the Catholic Church, but then it became more real to you as you progressed through high school, college, and to this point where you're in this small group. It's just kind of neat how God's patience with you and just kind of being steady in that regard was really
Patience
neat.
is a good word for it. I have still made lots of mistakes.
Well, we all have, but it's neat that God's with us on the journey.
Yep.
And it sounds like he was just constantly nudging you along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about, thankful things about, those two people who helped mentor us. Their kids eventually became babysitters for our kids.
Oh, cool. And this was in Virginia?
In Virginia.
Okay.
This was in Virginia. So this was back in the 2015 or so time frame. They actually spent Christmas Day, 2015 in the hospital with us because that's when Charlie was born. They said their kids didn't want to get up, so they went to the hospital. But that was a huge blessing for us.
Oh yeah.
To have them there. And just really thankful for that. Some things happened with the Methodist Church that you may know about, that eventually sort of pushed us away, and we didn't know where to go. We weren't real happy. We didn't know what our options really were. Thankfully, he was already hosting a small group. He had already moved. That same couple had left and went to a Baptist church, and they were hosting a small group at their house.
Oh, cool.
And so we started studying the book of Daniel at their house. Every week we'd talk through a chapter of Daniel, and then eventually we started talking about some other books. But that was at least a step in the door. At a time, that's also when my daughter was born, and also when Charlie was. So Charlie has autism, and he had just recently been diagnosed, and going to church was hard. I'm just gonna be straight up. That's one of the reasons why we're here. Some churches weren't as easy to work with him, and it made it difficult. But it's also made it easy in the sense that when we find a church that loves on him, golden.
Yeah.
So we went to that church, and I have seen it time and time again. There are just people who have that heart, and it's really amazing to see. Just some wonderful people who poured into him and let us be in church, and that was a huge blessing for us to just be in church and not have.
I think that sounds like such quite a burden for you as parents. Knowing that your child is going to be loved and cared for, and that allow you guys to have the ability to grow in your faith too. So I think that's very important, and I'm sure that's a blessing for you guys to have that.
Yeah. Yep. So at the time, this was about 2019 when my daughter was born. We were searching for a church. That also happened to be the time when the Methodist Church made some announcements. And the church that we were at made some statements that I didn't agree with. So about 2 or 3 months after she was born in the spring, my buddy was running the Bible study. He's like, you really need to go to church. I'm happy you're coming to Wednesday night, but that's not enough, right? And that was good. That was also, we started going there that summer. That was my first experience with contemporary music.
how, how did
Um,
you feel about that?
I was not a fan. I grew up listening to Catholic hymns,
Yeah.
and even at the other church that we went to, they listened to very traditional hymns at the Methodist Church. And the whole concept of contemporary music, I didn't understand. Um, and I suffered through it at the time, and because that's when they had childcare, and that just worked best for our family, and I've grown to enjoy it over the years.
I was going to say you're singing it now.
Yeah, yeah. But at the time, that was a real sticking point for me.
Sure.
Um,
Because that was something you weren't used to, and
yeah,
it was seemed out of the ordinary for
it
you
didn't
to
seem
feel
like
like,
church, and
yeah,
church was it was in sort of a gymnasium type feel, and I was like, "What is this?"
yeah, quite a
Um,
shock from traditional Catholic, you
yeah.
know, uh,
And so that
and the structure too. I'm
the
sure was a
the
lot
structure
different.
was very different. But we went through that, and then COVID happened. COVID was obviously a huge shock to everyone's system. So that was about 8 months or so into going to that church, and things got messed up with that. So then during COVID, eventually we got back to going to church a little bit. We never stopped meeting small group though. We made the decision as a group that we were going to keep meeting no matter what, even if they were closing churches. You can't stop us from going to a house. Um, and we just kept growing together as there were 8 of us. It was a huge variation in just experience in that room. So we had us, and then our mentor couple who was about 10 years older than us, and then there was a couple who was in their 60s or 70s, up there in age. Um, and there was somebody else who was in about 50s or so. So we had everywhere from late 20s to in their 70s in this group, which was interesting. Um, just having that dynamic,
A lot of experience there for you
a
guys
lot of
to
experience for us
dive.
to lean
Yeah.
on, and they were fantastic with us. Um, Especially so their kids babysat our kids while we were there. That really worked out well. Um, so that was really nice. And then I can definitely tell you, I can see God working in how we ended up here. So for years, if I backtrack a little bit, talking about my career, um, my degree from Virginia Tech is in mechanical engineering. I have worked at DuPont, well, it's now Celanese, but since then, um, I had applied several times to different jobs up here. My wife wanted to come here. She never was that happy down there. Um, she wanted to get away because she thought that she needed to get away from here, and then once she left, that's the only place she wanted to go back.
Yeah.
Um, so eventually, it was right in the heart of COVID. Um, Applied for a job up at DuPont up here, and I can still remember being able to give that joy to my wife that she's coming back home. But just in that moment, that job had been canceled in the fall, and we were starting to think about redoing the kitchen and doing some things to the house and she got upset that night. Because she knew, because we'd already talked about it, you know, my son at the time was 3.5, 4. We knew if we were going to move, we would like to be there before kindergarten.
Yeah.
And so that time was coming. We were talking about doing stuff at the house, and she was getting upset at the possibility of it not happening. And wouldn't you know, the next day I literally got a call from the hiring manager saying, "Hey, we reopened the job. Can you come? We'd
That's
love to
awesome.
interview you."
That's God.
And that was just a really cool moment. You can look back and see God if you look at different times that you just can't. It can't be anything else.
It's not a coincidence. It's
Yeah.
just God opening the doors. Yeah.
So that's how we ended up here. Um, in 2021. So we moved up here. We I came up here in May. He had to finish school year. Um, and then they came up here in like mid-June. So for 6 weeks or so, I honestly just went to church with her parents. I'm not the most, I am social, but I'm not. I think it's called a social introvert.
You are if you have to be, right? Typically, you're not on your own. Maybe
I'm not going to be the one just making conversation with a wall. Like some people we might know.
We won't mention names, but I think we can figure out a few, right?
So yeah, we had this church was on our list, and Lighthouse was on our list of just places to look. We just happened to come here first, and it was a little bit of a shock to the system being as big as it was. And I didn't feel entirely comfortable. Allie felt very comfortable because she knew a lot of people here.
Yeah.
And it was several weeks later, actually, no, I got COVID, and that was in like late August. I got pretty sick.
So was this 2021?
21,
Okay.
yeah, 2021. So we started coming probably late June here. So in August, I got COVID. I was in the hospital. At the time, I made a miraculous recovery, according to the doctor. And so came back to church, and we were sitting in church. I had told her, I said, we want to find a small group, but we had looked online, and it wasn't very helpful at the time.
Sure. Yeah.
And we couldn't.
Unfortunately, we had some closed groups at that time, or quite a few closed groups.
That's what it seemed like. It was like, well, we don't know where to go. Everywhere seems closed.
Yeah.
And then a guy called Scott Alloway came and introduced himself, and sort of the rest is history with that.
Yeah.
Invited us to this small group that he was starting up, and just have really been fortunate that happened. But again, it goes back to, I guess, two things. One, we knew sort of what we wanted, and God will provide. And then Scott had to make that step of faith to come talk to somebody. I had no idea who he was. Allie remembered him, but anyways, so that was an awesome start to what the last 3+ years has been.
Yeah.
Just a great relationship.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. The men's group. I mean, so you were invited at first to Scott's group that met on Wednesdays, right? And
Yes.
Then that led into Scott starting the couples, or the group he started for Wednesday nights, and it led into a conversation about starting a men's group, right?
So he already had the men's group
Okay.
at the time. And so my wife was very, very supportive. She pushed me, actually,
out the door.
so Scott was talking about meeting in his garage.
Yeah.
And there was honestly even a little bit of friction, not from her, but we were staying with my in-laws about me going out there. And she was like, go, you need to make friends. And on it, that was really the heart of it, was I needed to make male friends. And because I didn't have any, she knew everyone in town.
Because this was where she grew up at.
So that's where it started. And we were meeting out there. There were at the time 15 or so of us. It fluctuated in attendance. But I'd say I really started becoming I was just attending for more of a social aspect for months. Then the next summer, um, started becoming more real about it. And actually, so this is fall of 22. We were preparing for that Christmas play. I do sing. And I was, I made the decision to go to that. Um, I don't know if that was the right decision, but I think it probably was. Um, and I truly missed men's group. And that's when I really started becoming invested in it. And so during that whole time, right, Scott is, we talked about, what is your time with the Lord? What is your reading like? And mine was never that great. Um, I maybe had downloaded the app and opened it a few times.
But I think that's a place where most men are, right?
Yeah.
It's if a lot of men are honest, it's kind of I don't think that's unusual, for a lot of men. They have sometimes the best intentions, but when it comes to actually doing the what may be considered the hard stuff at first, it's like kind of having to be nudged to do that.
Yeah. So and there towards the end of 22, he approached me about wanting to form sort of a leadership team for men's group, and so we got involved. And there were five of us, I think. How do we want to run this? I think that he was feeling a little bit burnt out because he had been doing just about all the lessons. He'd been doing all the planning, everything all on his own. And that was time for us to really step up and be more than just a team of one. Um, and so also to go with that, it was like, if I'm going to do this, I can't just be talking the talk. I really got to walk the walk, right?
Yeah.
So that's started getting doing a lot more reading plans. At the time, a lot of them were just devotionals my wife and I would do together on there. And she was sort of my accountability. Because I saw that she had done it, so I'd better do it.
Yeah.
And eventually, it grew, through the year to last year. Like I need to do stuff on my own, not just sort of rely on doing this stuff with her. We would, you'd miss a few days because this devotional ended or whatever. Was inconsistent at best. Definitely way more than I used to be, but um, to say that I was reading every day, that'd be a lie. And so August of 23, I believe, went down to this Men of Valor conference that Adam had pushed us, our leadership team, he'd invited us to go to. And just turns out I was the only one who ended up going.
A little bit more dedicated than the others.
I'm not going to say that.
I'll say it for you.
But just a really great experience. And Adam had come to certain things. I'd been doing the softball. We'd interacted some. But we got to really connect on that trip. And so it was really helpful for me. Because my mom is going through a medical situation and she's having a really hard time.
Sorry to hear that.
So she has Lewy body dementia, and so at the time, she was just sort of getting the diagnosis and figuring out what was going on, and so being able to talk through that with somebody from a faith background was just helpful. And so went on that trip, sort of came back excited, right? You got that high from, a retreat, right? Yeah. Is what it was. And then continue on. I start reading through the Bible. I start reading through the Bible in a year is what I did for 24. But honestly, by March, I had fallen off. And I just wasn't making much progress. And once again, my buddy Scott literally ordered a book and sent it to my house. of like a book that goes along with the Bible plan. That really helped a lot of the Old Testament. It's sometimes going to be hard to go through.
Sure.
Um, some of it was like, why am I reading this?
Yeah.
But that just helped with the discipline and helped with understanding what was I reading, and what was going on here. So that was really, really good. And that helped get through sort of some parts where I just wouldn't be that excited. Um, and that's probably not the best thing to say, but it was hard. I knew it was the right thing to do, but I didn't have that drive.
Well, I think you're describing too the fact that you were able to have some resources there to kind of give some context
Mhm.
to why it was good to read it, to understand it, to kind of have that background. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
helpful.
And I think recently, uh, my reading because of, and then this last year going to Men of Valor again, really we were able to bring another guy down with us, and that was an awesome experience. And being more just social with the people down there, and some of the things that they're doing some 6-week studies together as a team and stuff like that. That's been just amazing, and we've been able to bring that to our group, which is awesome. Um, but I've skipped over a pretty monumental moment here. So
Sure.
obviously I grew up Catholic. Um, that meant the sprinkle was my baptism. Um, in the Catholic Church, had not been fully immersed, and Scott actually made it a point to talk with me about it. I don't remember when that was. That may have been 23. It was. That was before I went to that conference, because I know at that conference I had already made that decision. So that summer of 23, we were just kind of going back and forth having discussions. At the very beginning, I would say I was very confrontational. I didn't want to hear what he had to say.
Don't talk to me about this.
Yeah, but Scott kept pushing, and it, there was a lot of pressure from my family, about how to handle that.
I'm sure from your family's perspective, it probably felt like it was dismissing what had been how you've been raised or how
Hmm.
you've been things like that. They took personal offense, not because they didn't want you to grow in your faith, but just that what they had to offer maybe they felt like wasn't good enough in some regard.
Yeah, yeah, there was definitely some of that, and it was very disheartening, and I didn't want to have that fight. It just, I don't know, it was troubling, especially from like a overall, Christian worldly perspective. Like, why are we fighting about this? Um, but yeah.
Yeah.
So went back and forth. I know I met and we talked about it, and talked about it with Mark too. Um, Ultimately, what I came down to was, you know what? I'm not a theologian, and I could be wrong on this. And you know, at the end of the day, uh, I believe that the Bible says that you need to be baptized. So I'm just going to do what the Bible said, and if I'm wrong, well, so be it. I don't think God's going to strike me down for it.
No. Yeah.
So just on the, go with it, and let God be the judge of that. And so I actually got baptized on Scott's property there in his pond.
That was
That was
awesome.
an awesome moment with our men's group. Still a very, very good memory. Um, a lot of my growth up to that point has really come. Those were the moments, right?
Yeah.
You can go to church and listen to sermons, but those moments with other people holding you accountable, having conversations that you don't hit if you can sneak out of church and nobody will really notice much. Um,
Well,
but
and I'm thinking too, like facing those deeper challenges about our faith.
mhm.
Like what the purpose of baptism is all about, or what are these things as we come to them, as we read these passages. How does that really play out? It's that conflict that we go through that kind of dives us deeper into why we believe what we believe
Yeah,
versus just taking it at face value.
right, right. And so I guess as I was kind of looking literally at the theology of it, I looked up what the Catholic Church said, and I looked for things in the Bible that supported their viewpoints, and there were certain things that maybe you could say, and I was like, well, yeah, but you also have this, and I've got these two viewpoints that are loosely scripturally based. One of them feels maybe a little bit more like a stretch than the other, but um, I was like, I don't know what's right. Um, so that's kind of how I had a lot of those conversations with those guys. Just having that open conversation, no judgment about, what we were talking about was, that's where growth happened.
Yeah.
So, just a really cool moment for us as a group, I think. And I pray that our group continues to do that for men, in their lives. There are so many, uh, men who are, have a family and they're just going through the motions like I was. Um, they may even come to church every Sunday and doing that, but are they, 100% all in for Jesus?
Yeah. No.
That's really where my, I guess, passion is. And that's where, Scott and I align is that's where we want to work towards. And that's just a really cool thing it's really, really cool to be able to work with somebody whose vision is so closely aligned about what we want.
Well, that's what's, going back to God's timing, God working it out, that God brought you here, God's, developed you, even, the timing of us developing this new idea of just deaconship where,
Mhm.
I think it's a great, and maybe you can share a little bit of that perspective too, of how that was kind of a neat opportunity for you and how now you're a deacon because you went
Well,
through
yeah,
that
yeah.
process.
So actually, the reason that any of that sort of started was Scott asked if I could be a deacon. I was like, I'm not even a member, and so that's how that process started rolling. And then there was this deaconship, and Scott was like, "Well, you can do this and sort of learn how to do it." In general, I see tremendous value in younger men such as myself being in a room with those people who are more experienced and have that wisdom. Because let's just be honest, one day I'm going to be that person, and if I'm not learning from them now, I'm not going to be able to pass down anything. And so I want to be able to learn how to do that. Um, and those we all have our time in society. We all have our generation, and we have to be able to pass down that knowledge to the next step. And we just want to be able to be part of that process, I guess. Um, yeah. So as far as being on that deacon board, I just really enjoy um, being able to think through problems um, going on and how to respond to them. I think in general, um, this probably comes from this is the good side of growing up in the Catholic Church. I find doing works and being involved in things rewarding. Um, And so I definitely don't want to just be passive.
Yeah. Faith and works can go hand in hand.
Yes.
Before we wrap up, there's some things I'd like to kind of dive deeper just a little bit into. Is one is, for anybody that has a special needs or somebody that has autism, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there. What words or things that would you like to share with them that, to encourage them as they try to grow in their faith and as they try to raise their family with, I'm sure there's good things, but there's also some difficulties along the way.
Yeah, oh yeah, we're still learning for sure about how Charlie is gonna handle everything. I still have doubts myself about where he's headed. What does his future look like? Um, Even more so than a normal neurotypical kid. I guess I don't even know what his future really holds. Um, but I also say that God absolutely loves your kid and is 100% going to provide. I have seen that every step of the way, that there are just people that come and support him in in all phases. So the Ball family has been just tremendously helpful. Um, all of them with Charlie. We've had other at other churches, some people who are tremendously just they are so caring about what is going on with him. And I just, God has to play a role in that. I can't see any other way. Um, and there are people out there who will, you know, help you just be more comfortable. I know when I was younger and we were trying to figure out like how do we even do this, it was overwhelming to go to church. It was totally overwhelming. Um, just because he was not your normal 3-year old. Um, and then God provided, and it's just awesome when you can find that one person or a few people who can do that, and what a relief it is. And also, that one of the things I really like here is that he's learning about, and Trisha is very adapting to whatever needs or whatever we think of might help him better. It's not just somewhere for him to be cared for in the sense that he's a daycare.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's something definitely we wouldn't want it to be just like a daycare scenario. We believe, I think all children, and no matter even what age they are, should be taught something. And
mhm,
so I thank you for mentioning that, because I know Trisha and everyone back there really loves Charlie and really wants to see him succeed and learn about God.
mhm.
And I think he's definitely learned not not only from church but also from you guys as parents. So,
So,
well, sometimes even with what we would deem a normal kid. Not that I have normal kids, but
yeah.
you still wonder, what they're really honing in on or listening to or adapting. So I just want to say this for both of you and Allie that I think it takes special people for God to use you as parents to be his parents, to love him and care for him. And each one of us have that responsibility, whatever God gives us in our path, to take the mantle and say, I'm gonna do my best. And I really admire the fact that you guys have taken the challenge upon yourself and said, we're gonna, love Charlie and we're gonna walk with Charlie through whatever challenges may come. So, and I think that's what every parent should do for their child, no matter what scenario they are or situation they are. And you guys have done a great job with that.
Thank you.
The other thing I would say that I want to hit on is the fact that, um, you know, coming from your background and seeing where you are now, I want to tell you and just encourage you. I've just seen you grow and it's been tremendous. And for your family to grow, to see Charlie grow, and not just at church, but in flag football and other things that he's done and been a part of. And so it's just neat to see a family being involved in the church like you guys are with youth and things. So I just very much appreciate that, and just see God took you on this journey, and I'm excited to see where God takes you down the road.
Thank you. Yeah.
More involved in the men's ministry, or what may God have for you. And thank you for being a deacon now.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell people about the value you've seen here at Porterfield, or the impact it's made in the life of your family?
I just I see the heart in so many people. It's definitely not just about growing numbers, or making attendance look good, or how much money are we raising or whatever. There are so many people here who have just a heart for people and heart for Jesus. And there are so many people who do so many wonderful things, for this church, and I just want more of our church family to be as involved. We have so many great examples here at the church to look up to.
Yeah, I think that's key. Is just we want people to have the same value that we have.
Mm-hmm.
This joy that you and I have of being a follower of Christ. That everyone would have that same passion and that same desire to just grow in their faith and let their light shine for Christ and make a difference in the world.
Yep.
A lot of times we like to complain about the world, but not very often do we do something about it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we try to do a lot. Or it seems like it at the church. I obviously you brought up Upward. I really enjoy what sports can do. I love sports. I'm actually very competitive.
Sometimes it's hard being a coach, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is for sure. And that's one of the things that challenges me with having Charlie. Is I really wanted that sort of coach your son and whatever, and that relationship's not the same. I struggle with that. That's one thing that I just sort of, I don't know. I gotta trust and lean on God there, but it still sort of digs at me.
Yeah.
But I find, and I love coaching those kids. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So.
And you've done a good job of it, and I've seen you grow in that too, where you've gotten more comfortable and feel better about from where you started for where you are now.
Mm-hmm.
So just thank you for being a part of our church. Thank you for being here. You and Al and your kids are awesome, and I just want to thank you for letting us have this time to talk to you.
Anytime, Pastor.